In traditional Japan culture, people worship various kind of god, like the god of the sword, Miyamoto Musashi, and they also worship Lucy as Namaashi Megami and Piper as Wagino Megami, which means the goddess of bare legs and the goddess of armpit. You might never heard of these traditions before, because I just made those up in the morning. So on my yesterday's videos, I claimed that the Miyabi Lucy Piper team is as strong as the Yanagi premium team, but I don't really have a Caesar. So I make an extensive test today with Lucy and M1 Rina, and this is the test result. So I got 22nd on M1 Rina, 21nd on Lucy, and 22nd on Miyabi Lucy Piper team. I know that the number looks ridiculous, like I just made it up, but it's actually the real number that I got. While my rotation are not exactly perfect, but I think this already show that they do have very similar power levels. And I think it has to do with Piper is actually very synergistic with Miyabi. We all know that the best duo for Miyabi is Yanagi, but if we take away her polarity disorder and her faction passive, I do think that Piper synergizes with Miyabi better than Yanagi. And I think the other unit that synergizes better than Yanagi is Venice. And it has to do with the characteristic of the Frostburn, which work very differently from other existing attributes. So let me go over with the basics of disorder. So disorder happen when different kind of attribute of anomaly overlapping each other, and every disorder happen means extra damage. So I have to fill up this middle to cause an anomaly, and if I overlap it with other attributes of anomaly, it would cause disorder, and I could overlap it over and over. This is the second time I overlap it. And what people think is the earlier you apply the anomaly, the more damage you're gonna get. While this is technically true, but the damage difference is not that significant. Like the fire attribute, you would lose absolutely 0 damage even if you trigger the disorder at the last second. And for the electrics, you lose about 14% at the last second, and you lose about 3 to 5% on physical and the ice attribute. And I have already proved those in other videos, so I'm not gonna do it again. So if you watch my disorder related guide, I would say that timing is not important. You don't need to stress it to proc it early with pretty much all of the element and the attribute out there. But this notion of proxing it early to get more damage is especially true with Frostburn on Miyabi. So as you can see, if I proc it instantly, I would get 230,000 damage, and if I waited for 8 seconds, I would get 162,000, and if I wait for 18 seconds, I would get only 72,000, losing more than 150,000 damage, which is significant amounts of damage. So you wanna proc Miyabi's Frostburn as soon as possible to maximize her damage on disorder, because the Frostburn has very high and very low. So in order to mitigate this damage loss, we should pre-build the anomaly. Like if we are playing it with Yanagi, we should keep building the anomaly after they proc it. So let me show you the standard rotation of the Miyabi and the Yanagi. So basically you want to build the anomaly with Miyabi first, then you swap to Yanagi. After you apply the shock here, you fill out the meter here. You want to keep building the anomaly until like 50 to 70%. Then you swap back to Miyabi. Then I overlap the shock with Frostburn. After I proc the Frostburn, we already have 70% of shock right there. And that's set up for Miyabi to proc the disorder quickly so that we could get the most damage out of it. And then you repeat this rotation and make sure to pre-build the anomaly when you are not using the Miyabi. But as for unit like Piper and Bernice, you could do that almost effortlessly. The Bernice one is a little bit trickier. That will make another videos about it. But as for Piper, it's easier than a piece of cake. So let me demonstrate the rotation. The Piper Miyabi rotation is actually very synergistic. So basically you wanna start with proxing the Frostburn, then you go in with Piper. Now we got the first assault here, and build the second assault, but don't proc it, and switch to Miyabi. And now you apply Frostburn on top of that. Then you get back to Piper, then you normal attacks it. And notice that I wasn't able to proc it in the first hit because there's actually a 3-second cooldown time for Disorder. I couldn't proc the Disorder back to back, so just beware of that. Piper could build tons of Anomaly to allow Frostburn to proc quickly with one single skill. And with this reason, you should 100% use Anomaly Mastery on pretty much any Anomaly that pair with Miyabi, like Bernice, Grace, Jane Doe, and of course Yanagi, so that you get the most damage out of Frostburn. So as you can see, my Miyabi is not fully built yet with 66 crit damage, and I'm going with standard 4-set Branch and Blade Song and 2-set Woodpecker. My Lucy is also pretty standard. During the speed run, I noticed that if I could stun the enemy like few seconds faster, I could get a better time, so I switched to the Impact 2-set, and instead of using Swing Jazz, I should have used Proton Punks or the Astro Voice instead. It would be better in the Anomaly setting. My Piper is also pretty standard, and I think it's the nature of the critical note that you don't really need that much energy from the Swing Jazz. My Lucy and Piper are at Mindscape 6, and my Miyabi is at Mindscape 0 without the signature W engine. So I'm gonna do the speed run at the critical note 7 on the second half, and I've got 55 seconds in this run. I actually saw another video in the JP side. Somebody got 37 seconds with the Miyabi signature weapon. So definitely don't sleep on this team. So I pre-buff with the Lucy and get in with Miyabi from the right side and managed to clear the trash mob with one single charge attack. And I'm going in with skill and along with basic 4 and 5 and dodge counter it. And now I'm going in with Piper and spin to win, proxing one assault and build the second assault without proxing it. And now my Miyabi do her thing, proxing the Frostburn, proxing the Disorder, but I made a mistake here. I swapped to Piper too quickly and ended up attacks with 4-stack attack instead. I thought I made a mistake here, but this mistake just made everything click together, and I got 3 seconds faster from this mistake. So as I try to use my so-called correct rotation, there would be some part that wouldn't click correctly, and I will show you later which part am I talking about. So I go in with Piper, try to proc the Disorder, and I use the ultimate during the defense assist. And this is the part where my previous mistake clicked. Instead of keep hitting the enemy with basic attacks to charge the skill to get the stack, I can just use her charge attack immediately. Then swap in with Piper here out. And again, I want to keep building the assault even after I proc the first initial assault with Piper so that we could get the most damage out of Frostburn. I parry with Miyabi and get into this chain attack, swapping to Lucy for the Swing Jazz 4-set buff, proc the Frostburn with Miyabi, and I could have just used the Bamboo here cause the Disorder wouldn't proc anyway, and I may get a second faster I guess, which is a real mistake here. But still, a pretty good run, and I couldn't get any better time than this after trying for another dozens of time. And this is the really goofy shot I got from the finishing screen. Like and sub if this video helped, and see you guys.